You don't know it yet, but the woman bleeding into the snow at your feet is about to change everything. It's December of 1881. The Colorado wind cuts through your coat like it's not even there. You came down to the creek for ice and kindling. 3 logs left in the cabin, half a sack of flour, 2 children waiting for a miracle you don't know how to give. Your wife Cordelia has been in the cold ground 8 months now. The doctor called it a fever. You believed him. God help you. You believed him. Then you see the red trail. You think mountain lion. You raise the axe. You follow the drag marks through the pines. And there she is, face down. Buckskin coat soaked black with blood. 2 bullet holes punched clean through her chest. Her hand, even half dead, even freezing, locked tight around a leather satchel like it holds her very soul. She groans. She's still alive. You have a choice to make, Ezra Whitlock. Walk away and let the snow finish what someone else started, or drag her home and bring whatever hunted her right to your children's door. You don't know what's in that satchel. You don't know your wife's name is written inside it, but you're about to find out. December 1881. The Colorado wind cuts through your coat like it's not even there. The Sangre de Cristo mountains stand white and silent above you. Watching. Always watching. You came down to the creek for ice. That's all. Just ice. Just kindling. 3 logs left in the cabin. Half a sack of flour. 2 children waiting for a miracle you don't know how to give. Your name is Ezra Whitlock. You are 32 years old. You used to be a blacksmith in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where the air smelled like coal dust and your hands stayed warm year-round. Now you're a widower in a Colorado winter and your hands have forgotten what warm feels like. Your wife Cordelia has been in the cold ground for 8 months. The doctor called it a fever. You believed him. God help you, you believed him. The morning starts the way every morning starts now, with the sound of your daughter coughing. Hattie is 7. She has her mother's eyes, that strange clear gray, like creek water in spring. She doesn't have her mother's lungs. Cordelia could sing for hours. Hattie can't get through a hymn without losing her breath. You roll over on the floor where you sleep now. You gave the bed to the children months ago. Tobias is 10 and tries to be the man of the house and fails because he's still a boy. He's curled around his sister with his arm across her chest like he can keep the cold out by sheer will. You watch them both for a long minute. You don't pray anymore. You used to. But you're not sure who's listening, and you're not sure you have anything left to say to him anyway. You stoke the fire. You count the logs. 3. You count the flour. Half a sack. You count the days until you're going to have to make a decision that will break something inside you forever. 5. Maybe 6 if you stretch the gruel thin enough. You pull on Cordelia's old shawl over your shoulders because there's no one left to see you do it. The wool still smells like her. You don't know how. It's been 8 months. But some nights you bury your face in it and breathe, and the smell brings her back the way nothing else can. Tobias, you say. Wake up, son, I'm going to the creek. He sits up fast, the way he always does now, like he's been waiting for an order. Like sleep is something he can't quite trust anymore. I can come, Pa? You stay with your sister, Pa. Tobias. Your voice comes out harder than you mean it to. You soften it. Stay with your sister. Keep the fire up. I won't be long. He doesn't argue. He never argues anymore. That's the part that wakes you up at night. The walk to the creek is a 1/4 mile of frozen hell. The wind has teeth. Your boots punch through the crust of ice on top of the snow with every step. The world is white and white and white. Skeletal aspens, black pine shadows. The kind of silence that isn't really silence because the wind is screaming and you've just stopped hearing it. You raise the axe over the creek ice. That's when you see the red. You stop. You don't move for a long second. You're thinking mountain lion. You're thinking a kill, dragged off, half buried. You're tightening your grip on the axe and your eyes are scanning the tree line because a cat that's just made a kill is a cat that does not want to be interrupted. Except there are no paw prints. There are drag marks. Long ones. Heavy. Going up into the pines. And the red in the snow isn't the kind of mess a cat makes when it eats. It's a trail. A slow, terrible trail. The kind of red that means a body is moving and bleeding and not stopping. You should turn around. You know you should turn around. You don't. The drag marks end at a snowdrift under a cluster of pines. The kind of place an animal goes to die. The kind of place a person goes to die too. You round the drift and you drop the bucket. It clatters against the ice and the sound is too loud, And for one stupid second, you think you've given yourself away, and you almost laugh because what would you be giving yourself away to? A woman, face down in the snow. Not a man, not a trapper, not an outlaw. A woman in a heavy buckskin coat lined with bear fur, the back of it soaked black with blood that has frozen and thawed and frozen again. A wide-brimmed hat lies a few feet away. Her hair is dark and thick and dusted white. She's alive. You know she's alive because she groans. A small sound. Animal. Wounded. It goes through you like a knife. Lord, you think? And you haven't said that word in 8 months. You haven't even thought it. Lord, what do I do? You drop to your knees beside her. It takes everything you have to roll her over. She's heavier than she should be. The coat, the blood, the dead weight of a body that's been bleeding out for hours. When you get her face up, you almost recoil. She's young, maybe 29, maybe 30. Her skin is sun-darkened, the kind of brown that comes from years on a horse. There's a scar along her jaw, small, white, old. Her lips are blue, 2 bullet holes, one in her chest, one in her side. The chest one is the bad one. You can hear her breath whistling around it, wet and shallow, and you know enough about a body to know that she has minutes, maybe an hour. Her right hand is locked around a leather satchel. Even now, even half dead, even with her fingers turning the color of the snow, she's holding that satchel like it's the only thing tethering her to the world. Her eyelids flutter, a flash of dark eyes, unfocused, wild. Her cracked lips move. Don't, she rasps, don't let. Thorn, your blood goes colder than the air. Thorn. Silas Thorn. The man who has been riding out to your cabin every month for 7 months. The man who buried his late wife last summer and started looking at the widows in the valley like they were land he hadn't surveyed yet. The man who showed up at your door 3 weeks after Cordelia was in the ground with a piece of paper that said your wife had owed him $500 she'd never told you about. The man who poured your wife wine the night she died. The woman in the snow says his name like it's a curse, and then her head lolls back and her eyes roll up and you think she's gone. She isn't, but she's leaving. You stand up. You stare at her. You stare back at the cabin, a tiny smear of smoke against the white. And you think about Tobias and Hattie and 3 logs and half a sack of flour. You think about a stranger bleeding out at your feet. You think about whoever put those holes in her. Whoever put those holes in her is going to come looking, and if they find her in your cabin, they will find your children. You stand there for a long time. The wind howls. The woman makes a sound. A small, broken sound, like a question. Cordelia's voice comes to you out of nowhere, out of nothing, out of 8 months of silence. Kindness is the only thing that separates men from monsters out here, Ezra. She used to say that. She used to. Damn it, you whisper. You lean down. You grab the collar of the bear fur coat. She weighs maybe 120. You weigh 180. The snow is slick. The incline is brutal. Your back is going to scream tomorrow, and you know it, and you do it anyway. You drag her home. It takes 45 minutes. You don't pray, but you don't stop either. Tobias, you're hoarse. Your lungs are raw. Tobias, open the door. The door flies open. Your son stands there in his too big shirt and your dead wife's apron tied around his waist for warmth, and his eyes go wide and white when he sees what you've dragged onto the porch. Hattie shrieks, "Don't just stand there." You're shaking. Grab her legs. He grabs her legs. Together, a widower and a 10-year-old boy. You haul a dying stranger across the threshold of your home. You kick the door shut behind you. You slide the iron bolt. You don't know yet what you've just brought inside. You don't know yet that you've just answered a prayer you stopped saying. The next 2 hours are the worst 2 hours of your life. Worse than the day you buried Cordelia. You think that. You actually think that. And then you feel guilty for thinking it because how dare you? How dare you compare anything to that? But it's true. Burying Cordelia was grief. This is panic. This is your hands shaking so badly you can't thread the needle. This is your 7-year-old daughter pressed into the corner with her mother's corn husk doll over her face so she can't see. This is your son holding the legs of a stranger while you pour raw whiskey into a chest wound and the woman arches off the floor and screams a sound that doesn't sound human. She passes out. Thank God. You wish you could pass out too? You can't. You sterilize Cordelia's small carving knife in the fire, the one she used to peel apples with, the one Hattie used to watch her use. You think about that and your eyes blur and you blink hard and you keep going because there is no version of tonight where you stop. The bullet in her side has gone clean through. The one in her chest is lodged against a rib. You dig. You don't know how you dig. You don't know how your hands obey. You don't know how you don't throw up. But your fingers find the lump of metal and you ease it out and it clinks into the tin basin and your whole body sags forward with a sob you don't let out. You pack the wounds with strips of Cordelia's last good petticoat. You bind her chest tight. You wash the blood off your hands in melted snow water, and the water turns pink and then red, and you have to dump it twice. Tobias has been holding her legs the whole time. You look at your son. His face is the color of paper. Go to your sister, you say, very gently. Hold her. Tell her it's all right. Pa, is she? I don't know. He nods. He goes. You sit back on your heels in front of the fire. The stranger's chest rises and falls. Shallow, stubborn, alive. You bow your head. You don't pray. But you sit very still for a long, long time. By nightfall, the fever sets in. She burns. You've never felt skin so hot. You strip her down to her shift. Careful, careful, not looking, treating her like a thing to be saved and not a body to be seen. And you bathe her face and her arms and her throat with water cold enough to make your own fingers ache. She thrashes, she mutters. In Spanish sometimes. Words you don't know but recognize the shape of. Mateo. Mi hijito. Por favor. A child's name, you think. A please. Then in English. Maps, she says. All in the maps. Don't sign. Don't sign. Then. Thorne's riders. Coming. They're coming. You go very still. She thrashes harder, and the leather satchel, which you set on the floor beside her, because even unconscious she had a grip on it, slides closer to your knee. You look at it. You look at her. You shouldn't. You know you shouldn't. It's a stranger's belongings. It's private. It's wrong. Except the men who shot her are coming. Except your children are upstairs in the loft. Except she just said the name of the man you suspect. God forgive you, the man you suspect, of doing something to your wife. Except you have to know. You unbuckle the satchel. Your hands are still shaking. The first thing you pull out is a stack of maps. Detailed ones, topographical, hand-drawn with a precision you've never seen. Lines and elevations and little careful notes in 2 languages. You know this valley. You've walked every inch of it with Cordelia, and these maps know it better than you do. They show things you didn't know were there. Underground water tables, aquifer lines, a great dark blue shape like a hidden lake under the earth, sitting directly under your homestead. The second thing is a small leather-bound journal. You open the front page. Property of Magdalena Reyes. Contracted surveyor, office of the governor of the Colorado Territory. You stare at the name. Magdalena Reyes. You flip the page. It's a list. 12 names, 12 families, each with a date, each with a notation in a small, careful hand. Eli Mosby, homestead foreclosed, July 1880. Wife Annette died of fever, June 1880, 3 days after dinner at ST residence. Wine poured from ST private cellar. Samuel and Greta Holcomb. Homestead burned August 1880. Cause attributed to lightning, no storm reported. Whitlock Cordelia. Died April 14, 1881. Sudden fever, husband absent, illness. Subject attended dinner at residence of ST alone. Wine poured by Reverend O. Crane. Annotation subject reportedly refused private proposal from ST 1 week prior. Cause of death consistent with arsenic poisoning. Further investigation ordered. You stop breathing. You read it again. You read it again. The room tilts. The fire goes far away. Your wife, your Cordelia, your bright laughing apple-peeling Cordelia who hummed hymns over the wash basin and braided Hattie's hair and pressed her cold feet against your back at night. Poisoned. Murdered. By the man who's been sitting at your kitchen table once a month telling you he just wants to help. Something inside you cracks. You don't make a sound. You just bend forward over the journal and you press your forehead against your knee and your shoulders shake and you don't make a sound because your daughter is upstairs and you will not let her hear her father break. That's when the iron grip closes around your wrist. You jolt. The journal falls. Magdalena Reyes's eyes are open. The fever is still in them, wild, glassy, but underneath the fever there is something terribly awake. Something trained. Something that has come up from sleep with one purpose, and that purpose is kill the threat. Her left hand is on your wrist. Her right hand has somehow, God knows how she's half dead, drawn the heavy Colt revolver from the holster you set beside her, and the barrel is 2 inches from your face. You don't move? Where? She says. Her voice is gravel. Are they? You lift your hands very slowly. You're safe, you say. The barrel doesn't waver. You're in my home. I found you in the snow. I dug the bullets out of you. There's no one here but me and my children. She breathes. In. Out. Her eyes flick around the cabin. The patched walls. The dying fire. Hattie's cornhusk doll on the floor where she dropped it. The bloody basin. Your hands. Bare. Raw. Brown with her blood up to the elbows. She looks at you. Really looks. Your wife, she rasps. What? Your wife. Was Cordelia Whitlock? You can't speak. You nod. The Colt wavers. She lowers it. She makes a sound that is part sob and part something else. Something furious, something that has been waiting 8 months to come out, and she says, I was too late. Her hand falls from your wrist. Her eyes close. She sinks back into the blankets and the fever takes her again. You sit there. You sit there for a long time. The fire crackles. Hattie is asleep in the loft. You can hear her wheezing. You pick up the journal. You read your wife's name again, and something starts to burn in your chest that isn't grief anymore. She sleeps for a day. She wakes for an hour. She sleeps for another day. You feed her broth one careful spoonful at a time. You change the dressings. You wash the blood out of her clothes in melted snow because the children are afraid of the bloody pile in the corner. You don't sleep. You sit by the fire and you read every page of her journal twice, and you study the maps until the lines go blurry, and you start to understand. Silas Thorne has been buying up the homesteads along the creek for 2 years. He's been doing it cheap. He's been doing it because the people who own them keep dying. And the reason he's been doing it is right here, written in Magdalena Reyes's careful hand on the third map. The Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad is planning to extend a line through this valley by 1883. They need a steam station. The steam station needs water, and the only reliable subterranean aquifer for 50 miles in any direction sits directly under your land. Your land. Cordelia's land. The land your wife died because she wouldn't sell. You close the journal. You look at the woman sleeping by your fire. You whisper, I'm sorry. You don't know if you're saying it to her or to Cordelia, maybe both. On the morning of the third day, you have a visitor. You're at the chopping block when you hear hooves on the road. Just one horse. Slow, casual, not a rider in a hurry. You drop the axe behind the woodpile. You don't run inside. If you run, you've already lost. The horse comes around the bend and you exhale a breath you didn't know you were holding because it isn't Thorne. It isn't one of his riders. It's the Reverend, Obadiah Crane. Reverend Crane is a thin man with a thin voice and a thin smile, and he wears a thin black coat that always looks too small for him no matter the season. He has been the minister at the Sangre de Cristo chapel for 6 years. He baptized Hattie when she was 4 years old, the spring you arrived in this valley. He stood at your wife's graveside with his hand on your shoulder, and he said, she is with the Lord now, Ezra. She is at peace. You believed him? You believed him, too. He reins in his bay gelding at the edge of the yard. Mr. Whitlock? His voice is bright and cold. Just passing on my circuit? Thought I'd check on the family. How are the little ones? Fine, Reverend. And yourself managing. He smiles a thin smile. He doesn't dismount. His eyes go past you. To the cabin. To the smoke coming out of the chimney. To the porch. My. You've been doing some hauling, I see. Tracks all over the snow. Big ones. Hunting. Took a buck up the ridge. Did you now? He clucks at his horse. Didn't hear a shot. Your stomach drops. You force a shrug. Trapped. His thin smile gets thinner. Strange thing, Ezra. There's been a woman missing from the territorial survey camp up north. A Mexican woman, they say. Works for the governor. Folks are concerned. We're asking around. You don't answer. You don't have an answer. If you say I haven't seen her, you're a liar. If you say yes, I have, you're a corpse, and so are your children. So you just look at him. You look at the man who buried your wife. You look at the man whose name is in Magdalena Reyes's journal, wine poured by Reverend O'Crane, and you wonder how a face you've trusted for 6 years can suddenly look so much like a stranger. Haven't seen anyone, you say. He watches you. You watch him back. For one long second you think he knows. Then he tips his hat. Well? You let us know if you do. The poor woman's family is praying for her safe return. He turns the bay around. He rides away. You stand at the chopping block until his horse is a black dot on the white road. Then you sit down hard in the snow, and you start to shake. You go into town that afternoon. You shouldn't. You know you shouldn't. But Hattie's cough is worse, and you need willow bark, and the woman in your cabin needs laudanum, and you have exactly $1 and a wedding ring to your name, and you tell Tobias to bolt the door behind you, and you ride. You don't go to the general store first. You go to the chapel. You don't know why. You tell yourself you're going to pray. You know you're lying. The chapel is empty. The pews are dim. The light comes through the one stained glass window in long red fingers. You hear voices from the back room. 2 of them. You go very still. You drift toward the door of the back room the way a man drifts toward a thing he absolutely does not want to see. Still hasn't been found. That's Crane's thin voice. I rode out to the Whitlock place. He's hiding her, Silas. I'm certain of it. The tracks were all over his porch. A second voice. Low, smooth, familiar as your own breath. Silas Thorne. Then we'll search every cabin in the valley, starting with his. He's a widower with 2 children. He'll fold. He didn't fold last month. He will when his daughter coughs herself to death. He's almost out of supplies. Give it a week. He'll come begging. And the Mexican. If she's alive, she's dying. If she's dead, the snow will have her by spring. A pause. Then Crane says, and this is the part that breaks you. This is the part that takes the floor out from under you. I confess, Silas, I have a sentimental concern. Oh, the Whitlock children. The girl is a sweet thing. And Cordelia, I do think of her. I do. I poured the wine, but I prayed over her too. When she fell ill. I held her hand. She asked for him at the end, you know. For Ezra. She kept saying his name, a laugh. Thorne, laughing. You're a soft-hearted man, Reverend. I am God's servant first. Of course you are. You stand on the other side of that door with your hand pressed flat against the wood, and you cannot breathe. You poured the wine. You poured. The wine. 6 years of sermons. 6 years of peace be with you, brother. You poured the wine. Your wife asked for you at the end. She asked for you, and he held her hand and let her die, and then he buried her with a thin smile and a Bible verse, and you thanked him for it. You don't remember walking out of the chapel. You remember standing in the street. You remember the sky was very blue. You remember mounting your horse. You remember riding home so fast the wind made your eyes stream, and you told yourself it was the wind. It wasn't the wind. You get home before dark. The cabin is intact. Tobias unbolts the door at your 3-knock signal, and his face is tight with relief, and you grab him and pull him against you, and you hold your son for a long time before you let him go. Hattie is asleep. Magdalena Reyes is awake. She's sitting up in the bed, your bed, the bed you and Cordelia used to share, the bed you haven't slept in since, and she's pale as bone, and she's holding her side like every breath hurts, but her eyes are clear. She looks at your face. She knows. You went into town, she says. Yes. What did you hear? You sit down on the floor by the fire because your legs won't hold you anymore. You tell her about the chapel, about the back room, about Reverend Crane and the wine and the way your wife said your name. You tell her with your face in your hands. When you finish, she is quiet for a long time. Then she says very softly, I'm sorry, Ezra. You don't lift your head. I came too late for her, she says. I'm sorry. The fire pops. Outside, the wind is picking up. A storm is coming. You can feel it in the way the cabin creaks. You finally lift your head. You look at this woman, this stranger, this surveyor, this Magdalena Reyes with her steady dark eyes and her bullet-torn chest, who came riding into the worst country in the worst winter to bring a journal full of dead names to a governor in Denver, who almost died for it, who might still die for it. They're coming here, you say. Aren't they? Yes. How long? Days. A week, maybe. As soon as the storm breaks. You nod. You sit with that. In the loft, Hattie coughs in her sleep. You think about Cordelia, about the day you put her in the ground, about the way Reverend Crane said she is at peace and you held your son's hand in your daughter's hand, and you believed him. You think about 3 logs and half a sack of flour. You think about a hidden lake under your land. You think about a railroad coming through this valley in 2 years. You think about a man in a thin black coat pouring wine for your wife. You stand up. Magdalena watches you. What are you going to do? She asks. You walk to the chest at the foot of the bed. You open it. You take out Cordelia's old quilt, the one with the stars she stitched the winter Tobias was born, and you set it gently aside. Underneath, wrapped in oilcloth, is your father's Sharps buffalo rifle. You lift it out. You set it across your lap. You look at the woman who came to your valley to tell the truth, and you look at the loft where your 2 children sleep, and you look at the door behind which a storm is starting to scream. I'm going to stay, you say. Magdalena's eyes shine. I'm going to stay, you say again, quieter, and when they come for my children, I'm going to be ready. The wind howls, the fire burns low, and outside in the darkening valley, 8 miles down the road in a warm parlor lit by good candles, Silas Thorne is pouring himself a glass of wine and laughing at something the Reverend just said. He doesn't know yet. He doesn't know that the widower at the end of the road just stopped grieving. He doesn't know that the widower at the end of the road just started hunting. But he's going to find out. The storm comes down that night, and it doesn't stop for 3 days. 3 days of wind that sounds like a woman screaming. 3 days of snow piled to the windows. 3 days of you and a stranger and 2 children in a cabin the size of a horse stall, with the bodies of dead names between you and the men who killed them. Riding closer every hour the weather will let them ride. You don't sleep much. You sleep in pieces. You sleep with the Sharps across your lap, and the door bolted, and the children in the loft, and the woman in your bed. Magdalena Reyes is healing fast. Faster than she should be. By the 2nd morning of the storm, she's sitting up. By the 3rd, she's standing. Slowly. One hand braced on the bedpost, her face the color of unbleached linen. By the 3rd night, she's at the table with a wool blanket around her shoulders, helping you clean the rifles. You've never seen a woman clean a rifle. You've seen Cordelia churn butter and mend socks and split a chicken from neck to tail with one stroke. You've seen her doctor a horse with colic and pull a tick off a barn cat without flinching. But you have never seen a woman break down a Sharp's action and oil the firing pin like she's done it 1,000 times. She has. You can tell. Where did you learn that, you say? She doesn't look up. My father. He was a soldier surgeon, Army, Santa Fe, Spanish, Mexican mother, New Mexican father, a small, dry smile. Don't ask me which one I am. I gave up answering 20 years ago. You watch her hands. They're scarred. Small white lines across the knuckles. Burn marks on the back of one wrist, a long thin slash across the palm that looks old. She catches you looking. Field surgery, she says. You learn to bleed when you learn to cut. Field surgery for who? For whoever needed cutting. Her eyes go far away. My father ran a clinic in Santa Fe. After he died, 1875, I went where the work was. Cavalry posts, wagon trains, Apache wars in 78. You hesitate. And you stayed, I stayed, until 1879. She doesn't blink. That's when I lost my son. The cabin gets very quiet. You don't ask how. She tells you anyway. Cholera. He was 4. His name was Mateo. He had his father's eyes. She's looking at the firelight. My husband was killed the year before. Apache raid in Arizona. He was a captain. Cavalry. You don't say anything. There isn't anything to say. You think, because you can't help thinking, the woman in your bed has lost everything you are still terrified of losing. She finishes oiling the firing pin. She sets it down. She looks at you across the table. I took the surveyor work because it kept me moving. You can't grieve at a gallop, Ezra Whitlock. That's the only reason I'm alive. You nod. You don't trust your voice. She watches you for a moment longer. Then she goes back to the rifle. By the 4th day, the storm breaks. The world outside is white and silent, and the sky is the kind of blue that hurts. You go out to chop wood. Magdalena comes to the door, leaning on the frame, watching you. Don't go past the woodshed, she says. I won't. They're coming, Ezra. I know. Today, tomorrow, soon. I know. You split a log clean down the middle. You don't look at her. You don't have to. You can feel her standing in the doorway with her hand on the rifle propped beside her, and you can feel the way her eyes are tracking the tree line the way yours are. Two strangers, one cabin, two children, watching the woods together. It feels like something. You don't have a word for it yet. That afternoon, she teaches Tobias to read a map. You didn't ask her to. She just sits down beside him at the table with one of her topographical surveys spread out and starts pointing. This is your home. That little square. That little square. And this is the creek. That's the creek. And these blue lines. She smiles for the first time since you've known her. Those, Tobias Whitlock, are the reason men want to kill us all. Your son's eyes go wide. He doesn't ask her to say it again. He doesn't need to. He looks down at the blue lines and you watch his face change. He goes from a boy who has been pretending to be a man to a boy who suddenly understands why he's been pretending. Hattie crawls up onto Magdalena's knee uninvited. Magdalena freezes. You hold your breath. Magdalena hasn't been touched by a child in 2 years. You can see it in her face. You see her decide. She slides her arm around your daughter and pulls her in, and Hattie tucks her head under Magdalena's chin like she's done it her whole life, and Magdalena closes her eyes for one long second and breathes. When she opens them, they are wet. She looks at you across the cabin. You look back. Neither of you says a word, but something in you, something that has been frozen solid for 8 months, cracks. Just a little. Just enough. That night, you sit with her by the fire after the children are asleep. She braids and unbraids the end of her own hair. You whittle a piece of pine that doesn't want to be whittled. The silence between you is not uncomfortable. It used to be that the only person you could sit silently with was Cordelia. Tonight you find, and the finding twists something in your gut, that you can sit silently with this woman too. You hate yourself a little for noticing. Tell me about her, Magdalena says. You stop whittling. What, your wife? Cordelia. Tell me about her. Why? Because I came here for her. And I never met her. Her voice is steady. I'd like to. You set the knife down. You stare into the fire. Where do you start? Where? You don't know where to start because she was everywhere. She was in everything. She was the smell of bread on Saturday mornings and the way she sang in the wash house and the small crease between her eyebrows when she was thinking and the way she pressed her cold feet against the small of your back at night and the laugh she had. God, the laugh she had. That started low and built like a wave and broke into something that made strangers turn around in the street. You try. She had a freckle. Right here. You touch the corner of your own mouth. Just one. Tobias has it too. Magdalena waits. She loved hymns. Couldn't sing a lick. Sang them anyway. You smile a little. She made apple butter every fall from the trees behind the cabin. The whole house smelled like cinnamon for 3 days. Magdalena's eyes are wet again. She was. Your voice catches, and you push through it because you have not said this out loud to anyone in 8 months. She was the bravest person I ever knew. Quietly. Not in any way you would notice. She was just brave. About everything. You stop. You can't go on. Magdalena reaches across the space between your chairs. She doesn't take your hand. She just rests her fingers on the wooden arm of your chair, an inch from yours. Thank you, she says. You nod. The fire cracks. You don't move your hand away, neither does she. The next morning you have a visitor. Old Jeremiah Penrose. Penrose is 71 years old. He has a beard like a snowdrift. He homesteaded the next ridge over 30 years ago, before there even was a road, when this whole valley was Ute country, and a man could go a year without seeing another white face. He helped you build this cabin. He helped you dig Cordelia's grave. He held Hattie the night she was born because the midwife was 3 days away. He is the closest thing you have to a father in this country. He rides up on his old gray mule with a sack of dried venison hanging off the saddle. Heard the storm took your fence. He squints. Brought you some meat. You stare at him. You did not tell anyone the storm took your fence. The fence isn't down. You glance at the fence. It's standing. He follows your eyes. Well, he says slow. Maybe I heard wrong. You let him in anyway. Of course you let him in. He's Penrose. He's been sitting at your kitchen table for 3 years. He bounced your daughter on his knee. You let him in because the idea of not letting him in doesn't even occur to you until 30 seconds later when his eyes track to the figure in your bed. Magdalena. Asleep. Her face turned toward the wall, her dark hair on the pillow, her arm in a sling. Penrose's eyes don't widen. That's the part you remember later. That's the part that breaks you later. His eyes don't widen. He just looks, and nods, slow, like he's confirming something. House guest, he says. My cousin, you say. Too fast. Came down sick on the road. From Santa Fe? Santa Fe? Yes. Long way to come sick? Yes. He looks at you. He looks a long time. Ezra, he says. Yes. Anything you need to tell me, son? You almost. God, you almost. You almost open your mouth and you almost say, Penrose, they killed Cordelia. They're coming for the children. Help me. And the only thing that stops you is something Magdalena said 2 nights ago at the table while she was cleaning the rifle. Trust no one in this valley you trusted before you knew what was happening. You close your mouth. No, Penrose, just a long winter. He nods. He has a cup of coffee. He makes Hattie laugh by pulling a peppermint stick out of his beard. He hugs Tobias goodbye. He rides away. You stand on the porch and watch him go. You watch him until his old gray mule disappears around the bend in the road. Then you go inside and you bolt the door and you sit down at the table and you tell yourself that you're imagining things. You're not imagining things. In the morning, Hattie comes back from the privy with snow on her boots and her face pinched up the way it gets when something is wrong. Pa. There's tracks. You set down the coffee pot. What kind of tracks? Boot tracks. Going away. Going away from where, sweet bird? From the side of the cabin. By the bedroom window? You go very still. Show me. She takes you out. She is 7 years old, and she has eyes like a hawk, and she is right. There are boot tracks in the new snow leading from the wall just outside Magdalena's window, where the woman lay sleeping, across the yard. To the road. They turn left toward Silas Thorne's spread. You crouch in the snow, you measure the boot print with your hand. It's an old man's boot, worn at the heel. The right sole has a notch cut out of the toe. Penrose cut a corn out of his big toe with a hunting knife 2 summers back, and the boot has had a notch ever since. A notch you've seen 100 times because you sat next to that boot at your own kitchen table just yesterday morning while he made your daughter laugh. Penrose. He saw her. He rode straight to Thorne. You sit back in the snow and you put your face in your hands. Hattie kneels beside you. Pa, are you crying? No, sweet bird. You're crying? She crawls into your lap. You hold your daughter in the snow and your shoulders shake. Penrose held this child the night she was born. Penrose dug your wife's grave. Penrose taught your son how to skin a rabbit. Penrose bounced Hattie on his knee not 24 hours ago. You can guess what he was paid. It wasn't much. It never is. You go back inside. Magdalena sees your face. She doesn't ask. She waits. You tell her. She closes her eyes. How much, she says. What? How much do you think they paid him? I don't know. My guess. She opens her eyes. 200, maybe less. For my children. For your children. Her mouth twists. My father told me once. Poverty can turn an angel into a devil and never even leave a mark. I didn't believe him. I do now. You sit down hard. His wife, you say. Martha? She's been sick all year. He couldn't afford the doctor. Ezra? He's been borrowing flour from us since October. Ezra? Listen to me. You look at her. Whatever his reasons, she says, he sold your children. You can pity him later. You cannot pity him today. You nod. You don't cry again. You don't have time. That afternoon, 2 riders come up the road. You see them from a half-mile out because you've been watching. You shove Magdalena into the cellar and you bolt the trap. You close the curtain over the bed. You meet them on the porch with the axe in your hand and your father's revolver tucked into the back of your belt. You know them. Cassius Hale and Otis Veck. Thorne's men. Hale is a known cattle thief. Veck once shot a man's dog for barking. They ride good horses and wear good coats and grin like coyotes in fresh snow. Hale tips his hat. Mr. Whitlock, Hale. Mr. Thorne sent us. Of course he did. Just a friendly check on the homestead. Word is the storm took your well casing. The well's fine. Mind if we have a look? I do mind. Hale grins wider. He swings down off his horse anyway. Vec follows. They step up onto your porch like they own it. They don't even pretend to look at the well. They look at the cabin. Hale leans past you and peers through the window. Cozy in there. Get off my porch, Hale. Easy, friend. His grin doesn't change. Just neighborly concern. That's when Hattie comes around the side of the cabin. You hadn't seen her go out. You'd told her to stay inside. She has Magdalena's blue silk scarf in her little fist, and she's holding it up to her face, and she's twirling because she's 7 years old, and Magdalena let her play with it that morning, and your daughter has never owned anything so beautiful. Hale sees the scarf. His grin freezes. Vex sees it too. The world goes very, very quiet. That's a pretty scarf, little miss, Hale says, soft, casual. Where'd you get a pretty scarf like that? Hattie stops twirling. She looks up at her father. She knows somehow, even at 7, that she has done a terrible thing. You step in front of her. You raise the axe. Just an inch, just enough. My wife's, you say. Cordelia's. She loved blue. Hale stares at you. Hale stares at the scarf. You can see him calculating. Hale was at Thorne's house the night Cordelia died. He saw what she was wearing. He knows. He knows your wife wore green that night. He knows. Vex shifts his hand toward his hip. You shift the axe. The whole world balances for one long second on the head of a pin. Then Hale laughs. It's a small laugh. It's a I'll deal with this later laugh. My mistake, he says. Good day to you, Mr. Whitlock. Give our regards to the Reverend on Sunday. He tips his hat. They mount their horses. They ride away slow, slow on purpose. You stand on the porch with the axe shaking in your hand until they're gone. Then you scoop up your daughter. You hold her so tight she squeaks. I'm sorry, Pa, she whispers. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. You did nothing wrong, sweet bird. Nothing. Do you hear me? They were bad men? Yes. Are they coming back? You don't answer. You don't have to. She already knows. That night, after the children are asleep, you do something you haven't done in 8 months. You kneel beside the bed. You fold your hands. You close your eyes. You don't have words. You don't have any of the words you used to have. The Lord's Prayer is in there somewhere. You know it. You said it every night for 32 years. But it won't come out. The shape of it is in your mouth and the meaning won't follow. You just kneel there, empty, tired, listening for something. After a long time, you whisper, I'm not asking for him to die. The fire pops behind you. I'm not asking for revenge. You swallow. I'm asking for the strength to keep them safe. That's all. Just that. Just let me keep them safe. You don't know if anyone hears you. You don't know if anyone has been hearing you. But when you open your eyes and stand up, Magdalena is in the doorway with the wool blanket around her shoulders, and her face is wet. She doesn't say anything. She just walks across the cabin. She puts her hand on your shoulder. You put your hand over hers. You stand like that for a long time. The fire burns low. The wind doesn't blow. The mountain holds its breath. In the morning, an arrow hits your front door, not a shot. An arrow, quiet, precise. A statement. You pull it out. There's a folded piece of paper tied to the shaft. And something else. Something soft. You unfold the paper at the table with hands that are not steady. Whitlock, hand over the woman and the journal by sundown. If you do, your children will live. You have 1 hour past noon. St. The other thing tied to the arrow is a lock of hair. It is fine. It is pale brown. It is exactly the color of your daughter's. You touch the curl of hair with one finger. It's hers. You know it's hers. You don't know how they got close enough to take it. Yes, you do. She went to the woodshed yesterday at dusk to fetch kindling, alone, for 5 minutes. You let her go because the woodshed is 20 feet from the porch, and she goes every day, and you never thought. You never thought. Magdalena reads the note over your shoulder. She makes a sound, a small, hot sound. Not fear, something else. She straightens up and her good hand goes to her hip where the colt rides. Ezra, I see it. Ezra. Look at me. You look at her. Her face is a wall. I will go, she says. I will walk out the door. I will take the journal. I will go alone. If they kill me, you take your children and you ride for Pueblo, and you tell the marshal everything. I have a man, Joseph Tall Elk, a Ute scout. He's coming to meet me on the 7th day. If I miss the meeting, he goes to the governor. The maps will get there with or without me. No. Ezra, no. Listen to me. Magdalena. Your voice is shaking, but it isn't bending. I will not sell my dead wife's friend to the man who killed her. Not for an hour. Not for a minute. Not for anything. Her face doesn't change, but her eyes do. Something in them goes soft. Then we fight, she says. Then we fight. That's when Tobias steps out from the loft. You hadn't noticed he was awake. He's standing at the top of the ladder in his too big shirt, and his face is very pale and his hands are behind his back. Pa, he says. Tobias, go back to bed. Pa, listen. You wait. He comes down the ladder. He stops at the bottom. Ma showed me something, he says. Before. Before what, son? Before she got sick. The week she went to Mr. Thorne's house. You go still. She took me out behind the cabin, to the old root cellar, the one we don't use, the one that fell in. His voice is small but steady. She said if anything bad ever happened, if anybody bad ever came, there's a way down. Behind the old shelf. She showed me how to move it. You stare at your son. What? Ma said, Tobias says, his voice cracking just a little. Tobias, your father is a good man, but good men don't always see what's coming. So if Mama doesn't come home one day, this is for you and your sister. She made me promise not to tell. Tobias, I'm sorry, Pa. She made me promise. The world tilts. You sit down. You sit down hard on the floor and you put both hands over your mouth. Cordelia. Cordelia knew. Cordelia knew something was coming. Cordelia walked into Silas Thorne's house that night, knowing it might be the last time she walked anywhere. Cordelia was so afraid for her children that she dug a hole behind a falling down cellar with her own hands and made a 10-year-old boy swear an oath he could not understand. Your wife was the bravest person you ever knew. You did not know how true it was until now. Magdalena drops to one knee beside you. She puts her hand on your back. She doesn't speak. Tobias is starting to cry now. You reach up and pull your son down against your chest, and you hold him so hard he makes a small sound, and his arms come around your neck, and you sit on the floor of the cabin with your son in your lap and your dead wife's friend at your shoulder, and you weep silently for a woman who was smarter and braver than you ever deserved. When you can speak, you whisper into your son's hair, You did exactly right, Tobias. You did exactly right. The plan comes together fast. Magdalena plans it because Magdalena is the only one of you who has ever planned anything like this. You will not give her up, you will not run, but you will not meet 8 men in the open either, so she will play dead. You will dress her in her bloody buckskin coat. You will lay her in the bed. You will smear deer blood on her face and chest. You will put the journal, a fake journal, a journal Magdalena spends 3 hours that morning copying out in her own hand, full of the same names and dates but with one critical difference, on her chest. She will close her eyes. She will not breathe when they come close. Thorne will come for the body. Thorne will come for the journal. Thorne will think he's won. That's when you'll be in the loft with the Sharps, and Magdalena will come up off the bed with the colt, and the children will be in the secret cellar Cordelia built with her own hands and her own foreknowledge of her own death. The real journal, the real maps, will already be gone. Joseph Tall Elk, the Ute scout, is meeting Magdalena tonight at the edge of the property, 3 hours before the deadline. He'll ride the journal to the governor's office in Denver. By the time Thorne walks into your cabin tomorrow, the truth will be on its way to the only man in the territory who can hang him. That's the plan. It's a thin plan. It has 1,000 ways to go wrong, but it's the only plan you have. That night, Joseph Tall Elk comes at moonrise. He is silent on his pony. You don't hear him. You only see him when you go out to the woodpile, and there he is, sitting on a paint horse at the edge of the yard, like he grew up out of the snow. He's older than you expected. 60, maybe. His hair is iron gray and his face is the color of old leather. Magdalena comes out, still pale, still slow, leaning on a broom handle. She and Joseph speak in low voices in a language you do not understand. She hands him the journal. She hands him the maps. She presses something into his hand, a small silver coin on a leather thong. Her son's, you realize watching her face, and she holds onto his glove for one extra second. He nods at her. He looks at you. "Brave woman," he says, in English. "Quiet. Brave woman, this one. You take care." He turns the paint. He's gone before you can answer. The snow doesn't even keep his tracks. You stand with Magdalena under the cold white moon, and you watch the dark line of the trees, and you feel, for the first time in a long time, that you are not alone. You are not the only one fighting this. Somewhere out there, riding through the silver dark, an old man with a paint horse is carrying your wife's name to a governor's desk. Somewhere out there, justice is on the move. And somewhere out there, 8 men are saddling up to come kill you in the morning. You spend that night with the children in the loft, all 3 of you in one bed. Hattie tucked under your right arm. Tobias tucked under your left. They fall asleep before you do. You watch them. You watch them for a long time. You memorize their faces. You don't know if you'll see them in the morning. You're going to put them in a hole in the ground at dawn, and you're going to ask a 10-year-old boy to keep his 7-year-old sister silent in the dark while men try to kill his father over their heads. That's the truth. You will not lie to yourself about the truth, so you memorize them. Hattie's eyelashes, the freckle she has on her ear that no one ever notices but you, the way Tobias still, even at 10, sleeps with his thumb hooked into his fist the way he did as a baby. You whisper, very quietly, "I love you, I love you, I love you," 3 times. 1 for each of you. And 1, you say in your head, not out loud, because you cannot bear to say it out loud, for the woman in the bed downstairs who is not your wife, who can never be your wife, who you are going to fight beside in the morning as if she were. Cordelia, you think, forgive me. You don't know what for. Yes, you do. You don't sleep. You don't sleep, and just before dawn you hear it. The sound that has been coming for a week, hooves on packed snow. Far away, coming closer. You sit up in the bed. You look at your sleeping children. You kiss each of them on the forehead. You climb down the loft ladder. Magdalena is already up. She's at the window. Her face in the gray light is calm. Her good hand is on the colt. She looks at you. You look at her. Neither of you smiles. Neither of you needs to. "How many?" you whisper. She tilts her head, listening. She listens for a long moment. When she turns back to you, her eyes are dark and her voice is very steady, and what she says next will go through you like a second bullet. "More than we planned for." "How many, Magdalena?" 8 horses, Ezra. 8. Maybe 9. You stare at her. "Get the children to the cellar," she says. "Get them now." You take the stairs 2 at a time. Behind you, in the gray dawn, 8 horses come up the road. And on the lead horse, in his fine wool coat and his polished boots and his thin black hat, sits the Reverend Obadiah Crane, riding beside Silas Thorne, riding to kill you, riding to kill your children, riding into the last morning of his life. He just doesn't know it yet. The children go down into the hole at first light. You lift the floorboards Cordelia set with her own hands. You move the false shelf. There is a ladder. There is a small dirt room the size of a horse stall under the cabin floor. There is a wool blanket, a canteen, a loaded pistol, a Bible, a small candle. Your wife thought of everything. Your wife knew. Your wife knew, and she did not run, and she did not tell you, and she went to that man's house anyway because, you understand now, you understand finally, she was buying you time. She was buying her children time. She was hoping he would only come for her. You can grieve that later. You cannot grieve that now. Tobias goes down first, then Hattie. Hattie is crying without sound. She does that now. She doesn't even know she's doing it. You crouch at the edge of the hole. Tobias. Yes, Pa. You hear shooting, you stay down here. You hear screaming, you stay down here. You hear me call your name, you stay down here. There is only one thing that brings you up that ladder. Do you understand? He nods. What is it, Tobias? Mama, he whispers. That's right. You set Cordelia's wedding band on the floor next to the candle. If you hear nothing for an hour after the shooting stops, and you don't hear my voice, you take this ring. You take your sister. You go out the back of the cellar. There's a tunnel. Your mother dug a tunnel. It comes out under the woodshed. You ride for Pueblo. You find the marshal. You give him this ring and you tell him your name. You tell him your father loved him. Tobias's face does something terrible. Pa, I love you, Tobias. Pa, please, I love you. Both of you. More than anything. More than air. Do you hear me? Hattie whispers. I love you, Pa. I know, sweet bird. I want Mama. I know. You don't let yourself cry. You close the trap door. You drag the rug back over it. You stand on the floor of your home, and for 1 second you think you might fall down. You don't. Magdalena is at the window. You walk to the loft. You climb the ladder. You take the sharps and you settle it across the sill. The riders are at the gate now. 8 of them. Plus Thorne. Plus the Reverend Obadiah Crane, who you used to thank with the warm shake of your hand after Sunday service. The morning is silver. The snow is fresh. The sky is the color of a knife. You don't pray. You just whisper, into the cold dawn, where only Cordelia can hear, I'll be careful with our children. Thorne calls out first. His voice is smooth as butter on hot bread. Mr. Whitlock? It's a fine morning. Step out, friend, and let's settle this like Christian men. You don't answer. Magdalena is on the floor, in the bed, smeared with deer blood, holding her breath. The fake journal sits on her chest. You see her eyelid twitch once, that's all. A signal. Crane calls next. Brother Whitlock, I've come to pray with you. There has been a misunderstanding. Open the door, son. Son. He calls you son. The man who poured wine into your wife. You set your finger on the trigger of the sharps. You wait. Thorne loses patience faster than you thought he would. That's the first mistake. He swings down off his horse. He gestures to 2 of his men, Hale and Vec again, the same 2 from the porch, and they step toward the door with shotguns. You wait. You wait until Hale's foot is on the porch step. Then you fire. The sharps roars. Hale drops. He drops the way a coat drops when you take it off a hook. No drama, no scream, just gone. The yard erupts. Vec dives behind the water barrel. Thorne's men open fire. Bullets tear through the cabin walls. Wood splinters, glass shatters. You feel 1 chip of pine open a cut on your cheek and you don't even register it. You cycle the sharps. You aim. You fire. Vec rises up to look. Vec doesn't sit back down. 2. That's 2. In the room below you, a man crashes through the back door. He has an axe. Magdalena is supposed to be dead. He doesn't know that yet. He gets 2 steps into the cabin before the corpse on the bed sits up and shoots him 3 times in the chest. He goes down. 3. Magdalena rolls off the bed. She's covered in blood that is not all deer blood now. Her side is open again. You can see it. She's pale as paper. She catches your eye through the loft hatch. She nods. She is not done yet. A man at the back of the cabin, younger, jittery, his first real fight, you can tell, kicks open the cellar door. The wrong cellar, the visible one. The trap. There is nothing in there but old crates and a snare you set yesterday. He steps in. The board gives way. He goes down 12 feet into a pit you spent the night digging. You don't kill him. You just let him fall. 4. He's screaming. He can scream. Screaming pulls the others. It works. 2 more men come around the corner of the cabin to see what the screaming is about. Magdalena is at the window now. She hits one in the throat. You hit one in the chest. 5, 6. It's quiet for 1 second. 1 whole second. That's when you hear it. A footstep. Inside the cabin, behind you. You spin. Below you, in the main room, a man is climbing up out of the floor. Out of the floor. Out of the good cellar. The one with your children in it. The one only you and Cordelia and 1 other person on this earth knew about. Old Jeremiah Penrose. He's coming up out of your wife's secret cellar with his old service revolver in his hand and his beard frozen with sweat and his face the color of paper. He has a tunnel key only because he helped you build this cabin. He has a tunnel key only because Cordelia trusted him with her life. She trusted him with her children's lives. He's about to shoot you in the back. He doesn't know Magdalena is at the window. She fires. She is the best shot you have ever seen, and she fires once, and Penrose goes down on the cabin floor. He goes down hard. He goes down on his side. He's bleeding from the chest. You drop down the ladder. You don't know why you drop down the ladder. Maybe because it's still happening. Maybe because Crane is still out there and Thorne is still out there and you are still in the middle of a gunfight. But you drop down the ladder anyway. You drop down because Penrose held your daughter the night she was born. You crouch beside him. His eyes find you. Ezra, he whispers. Penrose. My Martha. Penrose, why? He coughs. There is blood on his teeth. Doctor wanted 300 for the medicine. 300. I don't have 300. I never had 300. He coughs again. Thorne said 2. Said 2 would be enough. Said nobody had to die. Said he just wanted the woman. Penrose, you sold my children. I didn't know about the children. God help me, Ezra. I didn't know about the children. He said only the woman. He said only the woman. You can't speak. He grabs your wrist with his last strength. Tell my Martha, Penrose, tell my Martha I loved her. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I'm so sorry, Ezra. He goes, just like that. A man you have known for 3 years. A man who taught your son to fish. A man who buried your wife. Bought for $200 by a doctor's bill. Killed by a woman he didn't know existed 3 weeks ago. You sit on the floor. For one long second, you cannot move. For one long second, you understand something terrible. You understand that the world is not full of monsters. The world is full of small, frightened people who get squeezed and squeezed and squeezed until they break, and the men who do the squeezing wear nice coats. Magdalena is calling your name. You stand up. The Reverend Obadiah Crane comes through the front door. He has a small revolver. He has the smile he uses at funerals. You are out of bullets. You are bleeding from the cheek and the shoulder, and you don't even know when the shoulder happened. Magdalena is on her knees by the window. She is alive, but she is fading. The wound in her side is open again, and she is white as the snow outside. Crane steps over Penrose's body without looking at it. He raises the revolver. You drop the sharps and you charge him. You hit him at the waist. You take him to the floor. The revolver fires once into the rafters. He is thinner than you and weaker than you, and you are bigger, and you are angrier than you have ever been in your life. You pin him to the cabin floor. You raise your fist. Your fist is shaking. He looks up at you. He smiles. I held her hand at the end, Ezra. Stop. She was so afraid. Did you know she was so afraid? She kept saying your name. Stop. Ezra, Ezra, Ezra. Like a little prayer, I told her the Lord was waiting. I told her she should be at peace. But she didn't want the Lord, Ezra. She wanted you. Your fist comes back. And you weren't there. You stop. Your fist is in the air. He's smiling at you. He wants you to do it. He wants you to be the man who beats a minister to death on the floor of his own home, in front of his own children. He wants you to be a thing your wife wouldn't recognize. You lower your fist. Slowly. You lower it all the way. You roll him over. You take a length of rope from the wall. You tie his hands behind his back. You tie his feet. You pull him to a sitting position against the wall. He's still smiling. You crouch in front of him. You speak very softly. You're going to hang, Reverend? He says nothing. You're going to hang in front of the whole town. You're going to hang on a Sunday. You're going to hang where you used to preach. And every person who ever shook your hand at the door of that chapel is going to come and watch. The smile flickers. That's not my justice. That's the Lord's. You said it yourself. He's been waiting. The smile is gone now. You stand up. You turn your back on him. You leave him alive. It is the hardest thing you have ever done. Silas Thorne is in the barn. You know because you saw him run when his men started dropping. You watched him from the loft. He didn't fire one shot. He let his hired men die and he ran for cover, and he is now somewhere in the falling down barn at the edge of your property hoping to wait you out. He doesn't know it's over. He doesn't know there is no one left. You walk across the snow with your father's revolver in your hand. The snow squeaks under your boots. The sky is bright now. The sun is up. It's a beautiful morning. You step into the barn. The barn smells of old hay and rot. Silas. A scrape from the loft. Silas, come down. I have a gun, Whitlock. I know. I'll shoot. Then shoot. A pause. Then the small click of a hammer being lowered. He stands up in the loft. He drops a small silver-plated derringer onto the hay. He raises his hands. His hands are shaking. He climbs down the rickety ladder. He stands in the barn in his fine wool coat with his hands raised and his face the color of his shirt. You don't say anything. You just look at him. The man who killed your wife. The man who lit a candle for her at her own funeral. The man who has been sitting at your table once a month for 7 months telling you he just wanted to help. He swallows. He starts to talk. Of course he does. Whitlock. Mr. Whitlock. Ezra. You and I. We are reasonable men. There has been a great deal of unpleasantness here today, and I assure you, that I had that this was not, that the men I hired exceeded their orders, and I am prepared, I am fully prepared, to make this whole. To you, to your children. There is money. There is a great deal of money. The railroad, Silas, whatever you want. Whatever you want, Whitlock. I'll sign over the upper meadow. I'll sign over the south spread. The deeds are at the house. Silas, tell me about my wife. He stops. He goes very still. Ezra, please, tell me. Ezra, tell me what you did to my wife. He sinks slowly to his knees in the dirt. He looks up at you, at the widower with the gun, and you watch a man's face come apart. I asked her, he whispers. Asked her what? To leave you. Go on. I told her I'd been watching her for 2 years. I told her I'd build her a house, a real house, not a cabin. I told her she could have anything. He's crying now. She slapped me. She slapped me across the face in my own parlor, and she told me I wasn't half the man you were. You don't move. I couldn't accept that. A woman like her, telling me, that a blacksmith, Silas. I had Crane bring the wine the next week, the dinner. I told her it was a peace offering. She didn't want to come. She came anyway. For the children. For the homestead. For you, Ezra. She came for you. She said my husband doesn't know how to fight Mr. Thorne, so I'll fight for him. You don't realize you've raised the revolver until you feel the weight of it. The barrel is steady. You don't remember setting it level. Your finger is on the trigger. Silas Thorne is on his knees in the dirt of an old barn, weeping for himself. The man who killed your wife. The man who killed 11 other women's husbands. The man whose money put a bullet in Magdalena Reyes. The man whose money put a bullet in old Jeremiah Penrose's conscience. You can pull this trigger. You can pull this trigger, and no jury in the territory would convict you. You can pull this trigger, and your wife would be avenged. You can pull this trigger, and the monster will be dead. Your finger tightens. A footstep behind you. Ezra. Magdalena. She has dragged herself across the snow. She is in the door of the barn. She has one hand pressed to her side, and her face is white as bone. Ezra. Don't. He poisoned her, Magdalena. I know. He poisoned her, and he came to her funeral, and he ate at my table, and he looked at my children. I know. He needs to die. He needs to hang. Her voice is hoarse. Not by you, not in front of your children. If you do this here, in this barn, on this morning, Ezra, they will come up out of that cellar, and they will look at their father, and they will not see him. You don't move. They will see what Thorne made him. You don't move. And Cordelia, she says very softly, Cordelia will not know you in heaven. A sound comes out of you. It is not a word. It is the sound a tree makes the moment it falls. You lower the revolver. You lower it all the way. You drop it in the snow. You sit down on the dirt floor of the barn in front of the man who killed your wife, and you weep. You weep loudly, like a child, like Hattie, like the boy you were before you ever held a hammer or buried a wife or carried a stranger out of a snowbank. Magdalena crosses the barn and sits down beside you in the dirt and puts her arm around you. Silas Thorne kneels 3 feet away with his fine coat in the mud and watches you. You will remember later that he didn't smile. For the first time since you met him, he didn't smile. He just watched a man choose mercy, and you could see in his eyes that he did not understand it. You suspect he never will. The marshal arrives from Pueblo 2 days later. His name is Halloran. He is a quiet man with a tired face, and he came as fast as a hard ride could bring him, because Joseph Tall Elk reached the governor's office on the 3rd day, and the governor sent the wire that night, and the wire reached Pueblo by sunup. Halloran takes Silas Thorne in irons. Halloran takes Reverend Obadiah Crane in irons. Halloran takes the surviving hired men. There are 2, the boy in the pit and another with a shattered shoulder, in irons. He takes Magdalena's journal as evidence. He takes Cordelia's name and the names of 11 other women and writes them carefully in his own small black book. When he leaves, you stand on the porch and you watch them ride away. Thorne in front, Crane behind him. Thorne's fine coat is filthy now. Crane's thin black coat is too small for him. They look like what they are finally. Small. Frightened. Men. You let yourself feel it for 1 second. Then you go inside. The children are eating biscuits at the table. Hattie is wearing Magdalena's blue silk scarf around her neck. Tobias is reading a map. Magdalena is at the stove with one arm in a sling, telling Hattie about a kind of hawk that lives in New Mexico. You stand in the doorway and you watch them. You think, this is what Cordelia died for. This morning, this kitchen, these 2 children eating biscuits. The world is brutal and the world is small and the world is full of small, frightened people who break. But sometimes, the world also lets you sit down at a table with the people you have left. You walk over to the table, you sit down, you take a biscuit. Hattie climbs into your lap. She doesn't say anything. She just leans her head against your chest and listens to your heart. You hold your daughter and you eat a biscuit and you let yourself be alive. Spring comes. The spring of 1882. It always does. You are not ready for it, but it comes anyway. The snow on the high passes goes blue, then gray, then gone. The aspens push out small green leaves the color of new grass. The creek behind the cabin runs full and loud, and the air smells, for the first time in nearly a year, like wet earth and sage. A man from the railroad rides out from Denver in March. He wears a city suit and city boots, and he sits at your kitchen table, and he tells you that the Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad would very much like to lease the water rights to the aquifer beneath your land for the construction and operation of a steam station to be built in 1883. He tells you the figure. You don't react. You can't react. The figure is more money than you have ever seen in your life. The figure is more money than your father saw in his life. The figure is more money than your grandfather, a Lancaster wheelwright, ever even imagined existed. You set down your coffee. You ask him to wait. You walk outside. You stand on the porch. The mountain is purple in the morning light. You think about Cordelia. You think about her standing on this porch the spring you came west 3 years ago, with Hattie on her hip, looking at this same mountain. You think about her saying, "Ezra, I think we could be happy here." You think she was right. You think she is still right. You go back inside. You sign the papers. You take the money. You do not keep all of it. You will not keep all of it. You couldn't if you tried. You ride out the next week with a pouch full of bank drafts, and you knock on doors. You knock on the door of Annette Mosby's sister, who is raising Annette's 3 children in a cabin half the size of yours. You give her a draft. She tries to give it back. You close her hand around it. She cries. You knock on the door of Greta Holcomb's mother, who lost her son and her daughter-in-law in one summer, and you do the same. You knock on the doors of all 12. It takes you 11 days. The last door you knock on is Martha Penrose's. She's propped up on 2 pillows in the bed she has not left since November. She has the doctor at last. She has been on the medicine for 3 weeks. There is color in her face for the first time in a year. She sees you. She starts to cry. Ezra, I didn't know. I swear to you. I swear to you I didn't know what he did. I'd have stopped him. I'd have stopped him, Ezra. I know, Martha. He was a good man. I know. He was a good man, Ezra. He was. Until he was scared. Scared enough? You sit down on the edge of her bed. You take her thin hand in yours. Penrose was scared because the world was cruel to him, Martha. He wasn't a bad man. He was a poor man with a sick wife and no choices. And Silas Thorne is the one who made the world that cruel. Ezra, he told me to tell you he was sorry. At the end. He told me to tell you he loved you. She covers her face. You set the bank draft on her bedside table. You do not let her give it back. You walk out of her house and you ride home, and you do not feel righteous and you do not feel triumphant. You feel quiet. You feel like the storm has finally passed. Magdalena is leaving. You knew she was going to leave. She has always been going to leave. From the first day she sat up in your bed with her dark eyes full of fever and pointed a Colt at your face, she has been going to leave. She is a surveyor. The northern valleys are unmapped. The governor has been writing. She packs her saddlebags on the porch on a warm morning in late April. She is healed now. The bullet wounds are pink scars. Her color is back. She is wearing a clean wool shirt and her old buckskin coat and her wide-brimmed hat, and her dark hair is in a braid down her back. You stand in the yard. You don't know how to do this. You haven't done this since you were 19 years old, asking Cordelia Bauer if she would walk with you to the church social. Magdalena, Ezra, you don't have to go. She doesn't look at you. She tightens the cinch on her horse. I'm not Cordelia. I know. I can't be Cordelia. I don't want you to be Cordelia. She freezes mid-buckle. She turns slowly. She looks at you. You take a breath. I had a wife I loved more than my own breath. I will love her until I die. I will visit her grave every Sunday. I will tell my children stories about her until their hair is gray. None of that is going anywhere. None of that is up for negotiation. She nods once. But I am 32 years old, and I have 2 children who need a winter coat in October, and I have a house with too much room in it now, and I have a heart that somehow, against everything I would have thought possible 8 months ago, has more than one room in it. She swallows. I'm not asking you to be her. I'm asking you to stand next to me in the next winter, that's all. Just stand next to me. She doesn't speak for a long moment. Then Hattie comes out of the cabin. Hattie has her mother's old cornhusk doll in her hand. She walks across the yard. She stops in front of Magdalena's horse. She looks up. Mama said the doll was magic, ma'am. Magdalena blinks fast. Did she? She said it would find the people who stayed. Hattie holds the doll up. I think it picked you. Magdalena's hand goes to her mouth. She drops to her knees in the new spring grass. She pulls Hattie against her. She doesn't say yes. She doesn't have to. She just holds your daughter, and she cries the way Tobias cried in the cellar, and the way you cried in the barn, and you walk over and you put your hand on her shoulder, and you stand there in the yard with the morning sun on the 3 of you. Tobias comes out of the cabin. He looks at the 4 of you in the yard. His face does something. It is not quite a smile. It is the beginning of one. He climbs up on the porch rail. He watches. He waits. There is one last thing. You go to Cordelia's grave the day after. Just you. The marker is wood. You carved it yourself. Cordelia Whitlock. Beloved wife. Beloved mother. You will replace it with stone this summer, now that you have the money. But for today the wood is enough. You kneel. You take off your hat. You set a small bunch of mountain phlox on the mound. Hattie picked them this morning. She doesn't know where you are taking them. She just said give them to her, Pa, and you did not have the heart to ask how she knew. The wind comes through the aspens behind you. You speak quietly. Cordelia? You don't know how to start. You don't. I caught him, my love. The wind is gentle. I caught the man who hurt you. He's going to hang. Crane, too. By the end of summer, you wait. And I learned something. I think you would want me to tell you. I learned that you can love a person more than your life and still survive them. I didn't know that. I didn't think it was possible, Cordelia. I was wrong. You swallow. Her name is Magdalena. She came riding out of the mountains in a snowstorm with a saddlebag full of your name. She is brave, the way you were brave, quietly. She is good with the children. Hattie loves her. Tobias is starting to. I think I am too. You stop. You wait for it to hurt. It does. It always will. But it does not hurt the way it hurt 8 months ago. It hurts the way a healed bone hurts when the weather changes. A small, clean ache, almost a comfort. You lay your hand flat on the mound of earth. I am not forgetting you. The wind stirs the phlox. I am not replacing you. The phlox bend. I am just learning, my love. I am just learning how to live. You stay there for a long time. When you finally stand up, the sun is high and warm. You put your hat back on. You walk down the hill toward the cabin. In the yard, Magdalena is teaching Hattie the names of wildflowers in 2 languages. Tobias is at the chopping block, splitting his first log clean down the middle the way you taught him. The smoke from the cabin chimney is thin and white, the way smoke is in spring, when the fire is small because the cold is small. You stop at the edge of the yard. You watch them. You think, some winters end. You think, some winters do not. You think, I am one of the lucky ones. You walk into the yard. Hattie sees you. She runs. You catch her, you lift her over your head. She squeals, and it is a sound, a real sound, the sound your daughter made before her mother died, the sound you thought was lost forever. And her laugh rings off the side of the mountain. The mountain is white at the top still, but it is green at the bottom. And a long line of mountain phlox is already pushing up through the snow at the edge of the trees, where the creek runs full and clean and free, the way it was meant to run, the way it will run forever now, because of a woman who came out of a snowstorm with a satchel full of names. The wind moves through the aspens. It almost sounds like singing. You don't know if it's her. You don't know if it's anyone. But you stand in your yard with your daughter in your arms and your son at the woodpile and the woman you are starting, slowly, carefully, with great respect for the dead, to love, on the porch in the morning sun. And you say, to no one, to everyone, to Cordelia, to Magdalena, to whoever is listening at last, thank you. The wind in the aspens answers. It says nothing you can hear, but you understand it anyway. The end.